Hasbro and Space Marine 2 developer team up for AAA game. Hasbro CEO Chris Cox.
Dude, let's take a pause.
I know.
How many banger names do we got going on?
C-O-C-K, by the way, guys. Not some other, not like the Koch brothers. C-O-C,
But like
K-O-C-H.
Chris Cox, bro, you're a fucking Marvel character, man. That's a great name, man. What was the last guy's name? Something
Thaddeus.
Thaddeus Sasser?
Yes.
Sassar?
Sasser.
It read like Sasser. That's a great name, bro.
Yeah. Thaddeus alone.
Yeah. Moving on.
Yeah, but Chris Cox, he got made fun of like crazy. Announced a collaboration with developer Saber Interactive in an earnings call last Thursday to create a AAA game based on, quote, tentpole, end quote, Hasbro IP. The unknown IP will be adapted into a single-player, multiplayer action game, making use of Saber's swarm tech, which allows for combat against overwhelming groups of enemies at the same time. This comes as part of Hasbro's plan of a, quote, playing to win, end quote, strategy to carry the company through 2027, focusing on a, quote, mission to create joy and community through the magic of play, end quote. The success of games like Baldur's Gate 3 makes Dungeons & Dragons the front-runner IP to be adapted, but others, including Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Magic the Gathering, also fits the bill for being able to make the most out of the Swarm system and action-oriented gameplay. Wizards of the Coast, owned by Hasbro, have currently expanded the online version of their flagship card game called Magic the Gathering Arena by including the Commander format as well as a potential console version in the future. A planned G.I. Joe game inspired by Metal Gear Solid, focusing on the character Snake Eyes, was discovered in August of 2024 through a job listing for a senior world/level designer at Hasbro Studio Atomic Arcade. So, this is very new news. We don't know much about it. Clearly, this is bolstered by the idea that Space Marine 2 did as well as it did, and not in terms of just sales, but in terms of reviews. And clearly, they've, ever since Baldur's Gate 3, wanted to dive more into their IPs to make hard-hitting games. Now, how much of that was because the IP is so good, or how much of that was because Larian Studios knew how to make such a quality game for Baldur's Gate 3?
Both.
I think there's just only one answer, Larian Studios.
I mean, I think Larian's the primary answer, but...
Well, IPs have been done...
It's not like Baldur's Gate was a bad IP prior to Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, no, it was not. But, again, Dungeons & Dragons has always been a good IP. They made a fairly shitty 4-player co-op game back in the day. There's tons of Magic the Gathering games that just didn't do well, despite the core of that game being at least interesting and fun. But the point is, I'm just happy we're going to see not what happened with the Nemesis system, where it came out, it was this cool as hell mechanic, and all of a sudden the studio who was in control of it decided to never use it again. Even with their most recent game that got announced, Wonder Woman, when they were originally going to have that Nemesis system, they nixed it. And so, I'm happy the swarm mechanics coming in. Space Marine 2 was one of my favorite games from last year. A lot of that has to do with how fun it is to deal with just an oncoming rush of enemies. And even though they're effectively the same way you deal with them in games like Left 4 Dead, where you just shoot them down as the wave comes in, and of course integrating melee combat to make it more entertaining, I'd be interested to see it mostly in the form of a Transformers game. Because Transformers, it's big, it's grand, it's also already sci-fi, and including what they've always kind of centered these Transformers games around, which is taking place in Cybertron, where there's always that big war going on, I feel like would be very easy to translate that, or at least more easy compared to some of the other titles to have giant, big, action-oriented gameplay, as well as Dungeons & Dragons, seeing as how it's promoting a multiplayer aspect. Dungeons & Dragons inherently involves playing with multiple people. This news just gets me excited, because I also like Saber Interactive very much, and I'm very happy they're no longer under the thumb of Embracer Group, and I hope this is kind of the beginning of a long, lucrative series of games that they release, starting with Space Marine 2.
Yeah, when I think Saber Interactive and I think Space Marine 2, I think Transformers kind of fits that bill the best in terms of like working together on an IP to get also a single player / multiplayer title. You just kind of think of the gameplay loop of Space Marine, and you can see how that could kind of fit into Transformers pretty easily.
Big heavy guys that like feel weighty.
Yeah, I think that feels kind of one for one there. Of course they would have to switch it up and be different in order to sort of give you the IP experience that you as a fan the general you as a fan would want from that.
Mhm.
G.I. Joe, I think, would be an interesting case just because there's been some prototypes. They're working on some stuff already. And on top of that, it's not the most beloved IP in the world, so now they can take a couple of risks and have their own identity with it as well. But that also comes at the cost of brand recognition. G.I. Joe, not the most well-known brand, so not like
In America it is, but worldwide,
I mean, even in America, like it's not like it's been like relevant. Like
No.
we've had a couple of movies that have been,
I think they made a lot of money though.
sure, yeah, but what is a lot of money?
It means people at least, hey, G.I. Joe, I know that.
But I don't
I'll
think
go
it's
watch
because of fandom. I think it's just because
Yeah, it's
like,
recognition.
right? Sure, recognition, but also like, oh, here's the cheap movie of the summer. Okay, yeah, I want to go watch that.
Which is why it's not something that, like you said, they need to appeal to a fan base or anything like
Right.
that. It's just do what seems interesting.
There's a couple of tentpoles that they should probably head towards, but like other than that, like they can have a new and creative story. They don't need to adapt something one for one.
And I think that despite that still fitting the bill for a Saber interactive game using a swarm mechanic, because of the existence of a G.I. Joe game and Magic the Gathering having its own little thing with Arena, it's more in the realm of Transformers and Dungeons and Dragons. Again, because
Yeah, I don't know how you make with the mechanics and with that dev studio, I don't know how you make a Magic the Gathering game make sense.
it's kind of, it has more of an established fan base, but like the G.I. Joe we were talking about, they can do a lot with it. They can make a strategy game. They're clearly not, but they can also make a, big battle type gameplay experience, because in Magic the Gathering, the card game, there was something known as the War of the Spark, which is this giant what do you call them?
Get real nerdy.
Multiverse battle royale, effectively. Sure. Stage right there for the kind of game that this seems to be what they want to do. And it gets pretty crazy with a lot of different elements going on at the same time.
Yeah, I just think Magic the Gathering being tied to a card game kind of makes it just difficult it makes it difficult for me to visualize what that'll be.
Yeah.
And how we can still make it feel like Magic the Gathering without having card mechanic. I mean, we could, I could be wrong and we could, but the way that they're saying that they're focusing with the swarm technology and so forth, like it sounds like, hey, we're going to go an action game route. Dungeons and Dragons, there is a subsect of gamers and people on the internet who say, hey, Baldur's Gate 3, yeah, great, sure. This gameplay is not for me. I want something more action focused and so forth. I disagree with those people. I think those people are silly. But
people like what they like.
People like what they like.
Market for it.
And so I could definitely see a Dungeons and Dragons inspired game, a little bit more, Dragon Age-y maybe. Traditional Dragon Age, not modern, but maybe even modern Dragon Age, but good. Or better, I should say. That could kind of work, and that could be sort of their answer. Hey, here's the Baldur's Gate 3 that you wanted, for that percentage of people, and other people are going to jump in as well because it's Dungeons and Dragons and so forth. Like that makes a little bit more sense to me. I can see the RPG class building mechanics in an action RPG of that sense.
And Hasbro wants to do more with Dungeons and Dragons as far as video games go.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Magic the Gathering. They're doing
and
a TV
there's
show.
like environments in space in 40K that lend themselves to kind of a crossover there.
They do, yeah. But I think Transformers is the most likely. That's where my bet is, especially because it's got a more dedicated fan base. It's got better. It's in people's brains more because you had the recent Transformers movie that was extremely well received. There was the Bumblebee movie before, and then there was another Transformers.
What Transformers movie was well received?
The animated one. The recent Bill had talked about it. It was
yeah, you're right. The Transformers one. Okay, I was thinking the last animated or the last live action one they did with John Cena and.
But that was received well too. Bumblebee
no,
liked
it
people.
was not. No. There's one in between you're not thinking of. One with John Cena in it. Oh, I guess John Cena was in Bumblebee. There was another one
with John Cena in it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then at the end, the post-credit scene was a crossover with G.I. Joe. And they're bringing the two universes together. It bombed. It did not do well.
Oh, I had kids were a big part of it, I thought.
I don't know. There's always kids or something in the big part of something here.
Let's remove that one from the equation. The other good Transformers movies that have come out have given it more goodwill. And again, those older Transformers games, they're not that old, but they were extremely fun to play. And that was in a period of time where
Rise of
technology
the Beasts.
Yeah. Oh, that one. Yeah. Yeah, no, that was
Yeah, people didn't like that one.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. But I mean, like we've had modern Transformers games at a much smaller scale, usually done by like Platinum Games or something like that,
Yeah.
and they're typically received well by fans of both Platinum Games and by Transformers fans and so forth. So like there's already a bit of a blueprint there, but also like if you want to give it a little bit more grit, give it a little bit more budget for sure, and have it be more of a full AAA experience. A full AAA experience. I think Saber's a more than qualified team to do that and to give it the love and passion that others have. I agree with you. I think Transformers is the probable bet here.
Guess we'll see relatively soon, since their plans are in 2027. But that was the other last part, where is this something that's older news and we're just now hearing about it, or they just paired with them and we'd see it from a distance away?
I mean, I don't think it's like it's not something that they've been keeping secret for like 5 years.
That's the thing.
Maybe it is. It's probably just been a thing that's been in talks for the last year or so, and then they've signed the pages and they're going forward with it.
Most likely, but
is what I would guess.
Mm-hmm.